Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tighten Up with James Lott Jr. I'm James Lott Jr. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Here on JLJ Media, and it's just my show. We talk about anything to do with body modification, literally body sculpting, any kind of procedures that happen with the body. And I'm happy to have somebody who literally, that's what they do. Sculpt body shaping is what they do. It's sculptbody.com. And I went on their Instagram pages. These folks have 1 million followers on their pages, folks. They have famous clients. I was like, okay, I can't wait to talk to these people and see what they're talking about here, why they're so successful. They have 2 locations. Well, there's one in LA, but it's called Agora Hills, which I know where that is, but it's here in the West Coast. And then, of course, they have one in Miami, on the other side of the world, which I love Miami. That's another spot I love also. And the person I'm talking to has a background in clinical research, and of course plastic surgery. He's schooled all over the place, but we're talking about he's been to Yale. He went to Yale, folks. And he's a really nice guy. And he's a Canadian. He's an American. He's a plastic surgeon and extraordinaire. Help me welcome Dr. Daniel Suissa. Hi, Daniel.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me. And please call me Daniel. And also to all the listeners out there, James is making me sound way better than I am. I promise.
No, believe me, he is. He's good. He's good. Yeah. It's good. I love it. Okay, so welcome to the program. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Before we even get into all of this stuff, I just a little bit of background. You were telling me off camera, as I said, I've been to Montreal, Canada. So you're from Montreal. Are you from a family of medical professionals? Are you one of the few?
Yeah, no, there's actually quite a few people in the world of healthcare from my family. My father's this world-renowned medical researcher, gives talks all over the world. So I kind of grew up in that in my younger years, and still today. I mean, he's still going, thousands and
What's his
publications,
name?
talks.
What's his,
Huh?
what's his name?
His name is Sammy Suissa. And so big shoes to fill. It's always been the case. My sister's a doctor. My other sister is a doctor in epidemiology, and so it's a lot of that in the family. I guess we have a little knack for it, and yeah, I mean that's kind of that was like the upbringing. It was a lot of that, a lot of questions and asking and being exposed to colleagues, and just kind of always bathing in it a little bit.
Okay, so so obviously you guys are a family of underachievers. No, everybody knows that's a tongue-in-cheek and obviously thing. You did you know at a young age that you wanted to be in the field because you're surrounded by it, or did it come to you later?
It probably should have come to me a little bit later, but I remember knowing pretty young. And I'm guessing the only reason, there's no good reason, you don't know what you want at
Right,
that age,
right.
but I remember being like maybe 10, 11, 12, and saying like, oh, I want to be a doctor, right? But that's like saying I want to be an
Astronaut,
astronaut,
a
yeah, right, a
cowboy, yeah.
fireman. It doesn't just anything that sounds cool. And because we'd have a lot of guests over, my dad's colleagues and all
Oh,
that, so I was exposed to it. So I guess that's probably where that came from. And it could have turned out that that was all it was, and I ended could have ended up doing something completely. So I was way too young to really know. And then several years later, I started kind of understanding a little bit better. You study biology, you get exposed to it a bit more, and I realized that it is something I enjoy. I don't know, I enjoyed helping people. From can I put your band-aid on? That's when you're a kid, and it starts with the little things. And so I guess that's how it all came up. But yeah, I was pretty young. I was probably too young, and it turned out like that. But that's
yeah.
just life.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question that I can relate to. So my father is pretty famous, and we share the same we share the same name. That's kind of crazy. Um, he was for a long time he was the vice president of the Health Association for Nurses, and I was a nurse. So I run across You're like, oh, you're James Lott Jr. Oh my God, stuff. So I'm going to ask you, which I have gone through myself, what is it like having a father, kind of in a similar field, who's big? I mean, what's it like being in that?
Well, I can give you a few little examples.
Please.
Because I trained in Montreal. Well, the majority of it. Um, I mean, obviously, I would get questions like, "Are you the Sammy Suissa's son? Is that your dad?" Like I would get that very often during my medical school training, even in residency. I would hear that all the time. And then the other thing that I remember, and honestly, it doesn't do it to me anymore, but it did for a long time, is when I'd hear Dr. Suissa, I'd turn around looking for my dad. It took a while before I realized, oh, wait, 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 that's me,
Me. Oh, no, me. Oh, me.
because you become a doctor, but when you're born hearing Dr. Suissa your whole life and that they're referring to your dad, it's just funny. That was, but yeah, no, it's been great. I still pick his brain about all kinds of stuff. I mean, when I have questions, if I'm trying to understand if, research is good quality or not, or, there's a lot of research that comes out in medicine today, tons and tons and tons. And unfortunately, a lot of it is used to sell stuff, to sell a product, to sell a new supplement, to sell, and people are not equipped to understand if it's good research or bad research. And I would say a lot of research is bad. And so the what you were talking about, my medical research background, where I did a master's in epidemiology, I actually did it in his department.
Oh, funny.
I wasn't high enough level to take his classes because he teaches at a very high level, but I still studied with his colleagues and all that. And even with a master's degree, I still have to go to him very often because it's sometimes the subtleties between a good paper and a bad paper, good research and bad research is not that obvious. So we're fed a lot of information that's not great, and so I still to this day pick his brain regularly.
I let him. But
Lucky to
that's
have him.
actually that's a blessing too at the same time, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can talk about something similar, like you're in the same field. I love that.
Yeah.
It's funny we had because my father had the same name. If we're in the same space, and they're like Mr. Lott or James, we're like yes. Like, oh, which one do you want? C junior. I actually had a doctor, a regular doctor. We both work with him on separate things. I texted him and he answered like he thought he was my father. This happened just recently. He was like,
Yeah.
"So you want to help me?" I go, no, I'm not James Senior. I'm James Junior. Oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, that happens sometimes. Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
So I feel you on that. We've obviously lived something similar.
but you also bring up a good point that I want to talk about too. There's when it comes to science, when it comes to the medical profession, it's an ever evolving, ever changing world. So how do you? This is good for also the listeners and watchers of this too, because you're in a field there are things that are changing, and even the
Yeah.
world of plastic surgery and BBLs and all that stuff. How do you keep on top of everything? Because now you're practicing, you're a businessman and a practicing doctor. Like, how do you keep in touch with all the ever changing stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it's well, first of all, reading. I mean, I read at least an hour to 2 hours a day.
You
And that's
do.
just,
You
but
very much.
and that sounds like homework when I say it that way, but I enjoy it,
Right.
right? And sometimes, a percentage of that is my field, a percentage of that is just other fields of medicine that are interesting, and very often you'll find links, so you'll read something about anesthesia and then, oh, well, there's obviously anesthesia and surgery. And then you'll
Yeah.
read something about, pain medicine and there's pain and surgery. So a lot of fields are linked and you can learn from other specialties, which I think is very important, maybe not done enough. They're pushing that way more today. And, over the years, they've kind of pushed that way more. It used to be more separate. And so I think that's great. And then I read a lot of stuff that's just kind of the world, technology, science, what's going on all over, what's being developed. And I feel like it's important to stay broad. But that's what I do, and the masters helps me a lot. And like I said, picking my dad's brain when I can helps me a lot. And that's kind of how you stay on top. it's not even that it's changing, it's evolving. I mean, we have to continuously improve. At least that's the approach I've taken, and I think a lot of doctors do, is how do we do better, better, better? You look at a lot of stuff we used to do 20 years ago, and today it's like, oh, no, 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 don't do that, right? Now, on the one hand, you could say, well, these guys are idiots, right? We look dumb because we were pushing something and now we realize we were wrong. But that's just science, right? We used to think the world was flat, and now we know it's round. And that's evolution, and that's progress, and that's you know learning more new things. And that's just what human beings, I think that's how we've separated ourselves from the rest of the pack on the planet, right? In terms of, you look at all the other incredible animal species, we've gone from the cave to building skyscrapers and going to space. And so I think that's what it is. And along the way, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to think you know, and then you realize you don't. And that's just the name of the game.
You said something. I just want to say that I'm glad you said it. It's ever evolving. That's a great way of putting it. Not just changing, but evolving. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Very good point, Daniel. Yeah, that's true. And I always try to tell people all the time, we know what we know when we know it. I mean, it's just you kind of, like, yeah, now they're saying, don't put this in your breast anymore. It used to be 20 years you could do that, or leave mayonnaise sitting outside and put it on your face. Like, you heard all kinds of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
we knew what we knew at the time, but now
Yeah.
we know
Yeah.
now we know better, or now we know different, or now we know, yeah, you learn that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast, right? It's just nature of the beast.
It is. It's important. It's very important because we live in a world today where knowledge spreads, and knowledge doesn't mean truth, by the way. It doesn't mean scientifically supported. It doesn't mean peer reviewed. It doesn't mean that there's a consensus that this is something that we consider to be true. Again, we may be wrong, right? Look at stuff we used to do. I love this example. This is an example everybody's going to understand. For a certain amount of time, when you had a newborn baby, you had to put them on their back,
Um,
right? Put your baby on your back. Then at some point, it was like, no, don't put them on your back. You got to put them on the stomach,
right,
right?
right,
Then it was like, well, we're going to put them half tilted with an angle. Then now we're back to the back,
yes,
right?
that's
People
true.
probably think we're nuts.
Yes, it is
They
true.
probably think, what are these people? Can't you just pick one?
Yes,
Just tell me what.
that's
So, and then people thinking like, oh my God, I put them on the stomach. It was
right,
supposed to be the back.
right.
What happened to my, and everybody ends up fine. There's most
Yeah,
things we realize maybe don't have as much as an impact as we think. But I think the most important thing is that it used to be a slow process, and today it's moving fast with social media. It goes viral. People start taping their faces with duct tape, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, I think it's evolution is very important, progress super important, but you have to know when to slow down. You have to know when to wait for a little bit more evidence. Don't be the guinea pig for every last
right
viral thing
now.
that spreads through TikTok or
Yep,
Instagram.
yep.
Try to be more conservative is my advice to everybody out there, because at least that's what I do. I mean, I'm not bringing in these new technologies that came out last week and like, we're going to zap you with this, it's going to be great. I don't want to start pointing fingers, but there's texts like this, that blow up and everybody wants them, and they're going to tighten your face, and all of a sudden there's lawsuits because their face is melting. Like people's fat melts and their skin gets loose, and you're like, what's happening, right? Or so without pointing fingers, that's not the point of this, right? It's more like, just be careful, take your time, be conservative, wait till there's solid research. Let other people be the guinea pigs.
I
That's
agree
my
that
advice.
Daniel, I'm with you 1,000%. I always say it. I always say when I hear something, I wait a little bit. I want to see what's going on, and then
Yeah.
like you said, and see what flaws come out, if any, first, and you say,
Yeah.
oh, they're realizing their ears are falling off, whatever. It's like, that kind of thing.
Happens all the time. The ears. Yeah.
I pick the ears. I don't know ears, but I'm with you 1,000%. I was like, just kind of like, okay, let's just see how that works first, and then, okay, now it's been proven to work. Then you go,
Yep.
okay, sure. And I like several years myself
Yeah. Me
in
too.
some cases, and go, okay,
Yep.
now I'll try it. Now,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Me too. 5 years for certain things.
yeah,
10. It's okay.
yeah,
What's the rush?
yeah,
Let's make sure.
yeah.
So
I
yeah.
know. I do. Now, one of the things I like about folks, when I went on his website, when I went on their website, sculptbody.com, and we'll leave it underneath the video and stuff. We'll have you you can get there. They have you have nurses, you have CNAs there also.
Mhm.
That
Of course.
I don't know if I ever I don't know if I ever really saw that anywhere in a plastic surgery practice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like that's very so I felt just seeing that you have a team of those. I felt a little safer just seeing that.
Yeah.
So why I just never seen it before. So please talk about that a little bit.
Well, listen, we have nurses, and we also have CNAs, which are certified nurse assistants.
Yes.
And I think it's great. We've had a lot of our CNAs go to school while being with us, graduate, and then continue working with us as a nurse.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And we've seen them evolve. And so I think it's very and they make they're amazing, right? Because they started off, they kind of learned the CNA position, were exposed to the nurses who were doing it, then became one. Some of them even became our leaders, right? Our head nurse.
Oh,
So
wow.
so you can it's beautiful to kind of see that progression. Also, I think it creates a certain environment where there's learning and teaching. And that's a bit like the way we learned, right? You learned, I learned. And so I think it's why not kind of continue that? Teaching is important. If you can teach, then you know it, right? And if you're having trouble teaching, you need to go back and review. And that's kind of, teaching makes you better. It makes you better at what you do. So yeah, I think it's great. We at some point we even had an agreement with the school, and they would send us, students to come in
Yeah,
and work with the CNAs and the nurses. And some of those became CNAs and then became nurses. So literally their entire career until now, from, even before their career started, was with us. So that's always nice to see.
I like that. For you, what is it about the body modification, a plastic surgery world that just draws you to it?
That's a great question. When how do you even choose your specialty, right? How do you even, I'm
I
going
feel like
back,
some, I
like
feel
how do
like
you even,
well, Daniel, I feel like sometimes it chooses you. Like you are
yeah,
moving along, and all of a sudden, oh, I like this a lot. I mean, but I
yeah,
wonder they keep because you're still in it. You're in it,
yeah,
obviously. So
yeah,
just curious, but please.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's I guess that's probably the best answer, right? It chooses you. So your career kind of chooses you. When you're younger, you think, "Oh, what am I going to do?" And then somehow in life we just kind of weave our way and just, like magnets pulling us in certain directions. And so I would say that's probably the best explanation is from one thing to the next, you're exposed to something and you kind of slowly move towards what feels right, what makes sense. And for me, I knew I loved plastics, and then I was exposed to some cosmetic, and I was still doing some reconstruction at the
Oh, okay.
beginning, which is very important and amazing. But it was similar, right? We were taking tummies and doing microsurgery to reconstruct the breast of women who had had cancer. So when, in certain cases of cancer, you got to remove the breast completely. Now you're left not just with no volume, but also missing skin. So there's a technique called a deep, which takes the same fat and skin you would remove in a tummy tuck, but instead of throwing that in the trash, you kind of dissect down the little blood vessels, right? The artery and the vein, and take it and put it over here and connect it to the deep artery and vein below the rib. So
Oh,
right coming out of the heart. Pretty cool
yeah,
procedure to
yeah.
see. And then it's all obviously tricky. Microscope, you got to connect the vessels with a microscope. They're very small. And if you do it right, well, then there's a breast now that is made with the skin and fat from their tummy that would have gone to the trash in a tummy tuck. And now they have a boob. And it feels natural and it looks natural. And then we little procedures to reconstruct the nipples. Anyway, super cool stuff. As you can see, I find it fascinating. And for me, that's the body, right? Whether you're doing it that way or you're changing the shape of a breast that doesn't have cancer, well, it's kind of very similar, right? It's not for the same purpose at all, but it is the same principle of changing the shape of the body, right? Improving the shape of the body. And then how did I end up kind of really in this direction? I would
Yeah.
say I I I always looked at it like, how can we minimize risk, right? I'm not I don't bungee jump. I don't, I'm like, I take calculated risks, I'll do a very shallow scuba dive here
Like
and
the
there,
shallow
but I'm
scuba
like,
dive.
preferably in a lake with no
Oh
monsters,
my
like
God,
that's kind of,
that is
yeah.
hilarious. Oh my God.
Yeah. So like low risk. Low risk is good. No
Yes, yes.
motorcycles. And everybody who does all this stuff, amazing. Good for you. Live life to the fullest. I'm just talking about me, right? No
You're very
judgment.
practical.
And
You're a
so
practical guy. Very practical.
so so I apply it to what I always kind of done and how I chose. And I found this way. I learned this way of doing things, which is I can reshape the body. I can do it without general anesthesia, so no tubes, right? No being completely out on a table. You're still awake. Sometimes they nap, but you're still awake. You move. We ask you to lift your arm and reposition your body, which actually gives a better result. But on top of that, there's not only no anesthesia, but also we've also eliminated silicone, right? And I'm like, this is amazing, right? We don't have to put silicone in your body. We're going to take your fat, like I was saying before, to reconstruct those cancer breasts, except this isn't cancer, right? We're just taking the fat and suctioning it out, processing it, making sure it's clean and sterile. And we have a special cocktail of antibiotics and all that. And then concentrate it and re-inject it in the place that it's needed. The breast, the butt, sometimes the hip tips. Most women on there are going to know what I'm talking about. The
They
men,
will.
maybe
They will.
not,
They
but
do.
basically, yeah,
Yeah.
those little areas on the side, fill them out. And so that's kind of, for me, I was drawn towards that. I'm like, this is safer. It's, I think, better because, and again, no knock on anybody who has silicones or surgeons out there
Right.
who
Right.
put in silicone. I think it's a big, big procedure and it's important. And a lot of women don't have the fat to do what I'm saying. And so if they want to be augmented, well, that's the way to do it. So there's no knock on that. But I do believe that what we do is an amazing option and it's using your own fat and you do it awake and you put that fat in the breast or the butt. And then there is no silicone to remove. There is no capsular contracture. There is no, there's no perfect procedure. Everything
Right.
has
Right.
potential risks and all that. But I do strongly believe, and the literature supports, the good literature, that the risks are lower for this kind of a procedure.
So, folks, what he's talking about, I went to his website, went to their website, and these are mostly pain-free, painless procedures, like you're saying, where they're not as invasive as other procedures have been. Correct. They're a lot more, like you
Yeah.
said, they're easier. But also, I kind of like almost that you're upcycling body part, fat and stuff. You kind of like, I feel like it's like a
Right.
upcycling of like,
Yes. Why throw it
yeah,
out?
why throw it out? You can use it somewhere
We
else. So,
call it liquid gold. It's liquid gold.
yeah,
What you have, you have. Once it's gone, it's gone. Yeah, you can eat and gain some elsewhere, but that original fat that we usually take out, it's the most stubborn. It's the fat that doesn't want to go anywhere. So when you take it and you put it in the breast or the butt, that's also going to be your most stubborn fat. You want it to stay there, and it will.
yeah.
So it kind of makes sense. Listen, just a little punctuation on the pain free. There's no pain free, like
Oh yeah, that's what
there's
you're
no
trying to say.
zero risk, there's
That's
no
like a
zero
pain test.
pain. And I would never promise that to a patient. You'll have, there's little sting here and there. And then, but ultimately, what our patients always tell us is it was worth it, like
I'm
it's,
saying it kind of
and
sense
they're,
of, that's why I changed like to pain less, because
yeah.
people are expecting the old days where you're like I can't move. It's 6 weeks later, and I'm not
Oh, no,
comfortable.
no, no,
No,
no, no.
you don't do that. That's what I mean. You don't do that. You don't do all that.
No, 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 no. People walk out
Right.
the same day. When they're done, they walk out.
Right.
They're a little sore, but they walk out, they walk out, they walk around. We have them walk every day. If you do just a few small areas, some people even go back to work within a day or two. It depends what kind of work. Obviously, it's very physical, but yeah, no, it's listen, at tops, usually a week is a fair recovery, and then after that, you just get better and better. People are back in the gym after 3-4 weeks, and um, they're happy. When you look back and you're like, okay, I'm done. I don't have to, get these silicone implants out 10 years later. Get the body shape I want now, and it's going to last. Yeah, I think it's been good for our patients.
Well, one reason why I wanted you on the show because I'm trying to show people that nowadays, because for this program, I had a procedure done recently.
Hmm.
I had a cell sound procedure.
Okay.
So on my face, and my face
Okay.
is good. I'm like 800
Looks
years old.
good.
I'm like 800 years old. But it did work. It totally worked. No, I have,
I
uh,
have a feeling you have genetics on your side too. I'm just being honest.
right, no,
Just
you're right.
being honest.
Right, you're right. Shh, you're right. My mother is like, she's like 900. Looks great. I mean,
Right.
pretty cool. Yeah, okay. So,
I could have guessed.
yeah,
Yeah.
Daniel knows what's going on. You don't have to say it. But anyway, I had this procedure done, and it was non-invasive, but it was some pain the next
Hmm.
couple of days, a little bit. But it's all sound waves in your face and little electrodes. That's what I'm saying. I want people to know there are procedures out there that aren't super heavy surgery. You're knocked out. You're in the hospital for 3 or 4 days. Like those days are kind of over. I mean, like for these kind of procedures nowadays, it's that they're coming up with situations that are a lot less than that. Like you said, you can actually walk out and go home, or you can go to the gym within 2 or 3 weeks, not 6 months. You can't do it. Like
Yeah.
I think it's just I love that this area of science has gotten better, more efficient on some
Oh
level.
yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
love that. That's why I want you on the show to kind of tell people that the sculpt thing that you guys do, it's not as heavy as some of the other stuff it used to be.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not.
Right.
Just the anesthesia. There's a lot of studies coming out now that show that, especially past certain age, but we're realizing even younger than that. We used to think like past 45, 50, which is not old
No,
because
not all. No, no.
I'm old. It's,
Yeah, it's not old, not
so
anymore.
it's
No.
not old. So, that we used to think starting at that age, but now we're realizing even younger, even one or two bouts of general anesthesia, depending on the duration, can have durable cognitive impacts.
Yeah.
Like it's not a joke, and this is real science. This is real. This is not viral stuff that you know face taping or stuff like that. This is real, and people aren't aware of it. So for me, just anywhere we can reduce risk, I mean, that's what it's all about.
I can
It
ask you
has
a
to be
question.
done safe.
I ask every plastic surgeon this because I just think it's fascinating. I'm just curious what your take on this is. BBLs.
Yeah.
I just think, I mean, I here in LA, and I'm sure you see it in Miami too.
Yeah.
I see some of the most outrageous BBLs out there on earth. I mean, some look really good. I mean, they do. Some look good. I get it. Some look good. But I'm just like, it's such an interesting phenomenon how that has taken off in such a way the last like 10 years. I just want
Yeah.
your general thoughts on BBLs. I mean, I know you guys offer them, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are on
Yeah, there's so much to say about BBLs.
that.
It's just been it started, all cosmetic surgery started from the same place, right? Somebody wants to look better. They
Yeah,
want to improve something. Very often they feel like, hey, this is not how I'm supposed to look. I know this is what was given to me, but something is off, right? Why are my hips not wider? Why is I'm carry a lot of fat around my waistline. That's not even my true waistline, right? My
right.
muscle is deeper underneath. You grab them and you feel there's a big gap there. So it's not their real waistline. And they just have a lot of trouble getting rid of those last few pounds. And then you have to starve yourself, which is not healthy, right? That's another problem. So it all starts in the same place, but then with these trends with social media, um, there's there's been things that have been pushed that have, I think, warped how young women and all women see their bodies and think they're supposed to look. And I think that's kind of where we started seeing these trends of these really aggressive BBLs. Um, for me, any cosmetic surgery, and again, this is my opinion, no knock on
Right,
anybody else
right,
who does
exactly.
anything else, whether it's for themselves or surgeons doing it. I think it's important to know that, like I'm never here criticizing anybody,
Right.
but for me, my position is that if people can see it, if it's obvious, I'm not talking the closest people to you who can catch that little difference. You cut your hair an inch shorter, they catch it, right? That's not what I'm talking about. But if generally the people who are around you, not that close, can see it, they know you've had it done, then maybe that's a little bit too much, right? It may not be, but it could be. That might be like somewhere an indicator that it was too aggressive. I think the goal should be two things. One, it should look natural in the sense that people aren't like, oh, whoa, did you see what she had done or he had done?
Yeah.
That's number one. And number two, it should be timeless. And there are known proportions of the body There's a golden ratio. There's all kinds of different ratios in the body. One that I talk about a lot because it's relevant to what we do is, you've heard of different sizes when they size women, like especially in the world of modeling.
Oh yeah.
They'll say like, 34, 28, 36, or whatever, right? They have these dimensions. And ultimately, the ratio between the thinnest part of the waist and the thickest part of the butt and hips. And well, that ratio, something that's universally been kind of always considered attractive to the opposite sex, or to whoever's attracted to that sex, to women, has been around zero point 0.7. And it can fluctuate culturally and geographically between 0.68 and 0.72, but it's not as much as we think, right? Those preferences don't go far out. There's always personal preferences, but overall, as human beings, that's kind of what we prefer. That's the ratio that most people will prefer.
Yeah.
And I think if you respect certain principles and proportions and universal standards within reason, again, always taking into account, culture, geographic, personal preference and all that. But I think you can create body shapes and adjust body shapes to something that will always look good. That when the trend passes of the really big BBL,
Yeah.
they're left with something that looks good, looks natural, feels good to them, and it's not something they want to come and have removed. And we have, believe it or not, a lot of patients who come in and say,
I believe
"Can
it.
you make it smaller?"
I believe it. Yeah.
And the answer is usually not really. It's hard because once you've stretched that skin out and you've put so much in there, if you remove it, you can remove the fat. But once you remove it, the butt's going to look saggy. So we
Uh,
usually recommend and don't do it and recommend not to unless it's very, very small or localized fat. So yeah, BBLs and BBLs, they're an interesting animal because they kind of blew up and there were no real standards of how to perform it. And some people with a lot of experience were doing them. Some people with very little experience were trying to do them. Um, and some people with a lot of experience were doing them consistently the same way, but it wasn't ideal. And that's nobody's fault because what we realized sometime in the around 2015 is there were a lot of cases of deaths or people becoming very sick. And I say a lot, it's not a lot, but it was too much for a cosmetic procedure. We accept very little risks considering what we're doing is not, fixing your heart valve, for example, right? Which is necessary. So you can only take risks that are very, very calculated and low in cosmetic surgery. And here the risks were too high. They were not acceptable. And so I was invited. I was a young surgeon, um, invited by Titans to work on this research, just because I had that background. And so it was a blessing. I was lucky to be working with these legends in plastic surgery. And we worked on this for a while, put together all the data that we collected, surveyed tons of plastic surgeons who were doing these procedures to understand how many they're doing, how are they doing, what type of cannulas, every last detail of what they could be doing in that procedure. And then we analyzed it and we found that there were a few things that actually increased that risk. And without those, the risk became totally acceptable. And so there's been a big scare since then, but this paper has been, I think it's one of the most cited plastic cosmetic surgery papers ever. And there's good reason for it, is because people got nervous and it was important to understand it, and it was studied more and more and more. So many papers followed this up to understand it even better. But I think that today we actually do know, when I say like it's good to wait, well, we've waited, right? BBLs have been here for a long time. And now a lot of research has come out. And if it's done right, and some of the key things are, for example, not injecting the fat into the butt muscle. You have to stay in the fat area between the skin and the muscle. That's probably the biggest one, because in the muscle there are big veins, and if you happen to inject fat into there, dangerous, right? No,
oh yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So by avoiding the muscle, you avoid those big veins. At least you reduce the risk significantly.
yeah,
And there's a few other things, types of cannula and angles and all that, but that was the big one. And one of the things that I always try to mention, and I think it's important, and I believe all BBLs, and this is again just my opinion, I believe all BBLs should be done awake, like we do them and some other places do too, is because when you're awake, your muscle has tone. Your muscle is awake too. And if I happen to come even close to the envelope of the muscle, the fascia that separates the muscle from the fat, if I come even close to it, the muscle's going to contract. The body will tell me, oh, you're too close, right? Now we're also using ultrasound
Yeah.
and to kind of gauge the depth and all that. But even then, there's limits to ultrasound. It's in 2D. You can't be using it all the time. There's like limits to how, right, what you can see with it. But when a patient is awake, if you get close to that muscle, it contracts. The patient gives you feedback. You get feedback all the time. Same thing if you're too close to any muscle. Same thing if you're too close to the abdominal wall. It really gives incredible feedback to keep you in the right area all the time. Where if a patient is completely asleep under general anesthesia, besides the other issues we discussed, their muscles are flask. There's no muscle tone. So the muscles are just like soft. And if you do get close to them, one, there's no tone. So the cannula could potentially, right,
Yeah.
transverse it, right, go through it. And two, you won't get the feedback. You won't get a contraction. You won't. So it's such a safer, better way to do it, in my opinion. I mean, but yeah, BBLs, they've got a bad rap in the last few years. But I think if anything, we've made progress. People should have been nervous 10 years ago and even 15 years ago, but they're nervous today when we now understand so much more about them and how to do them right, and because they've heard about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's normal, but it's evolved.
Yeah, and I love it.
A lot of
That's a
progress
great
has been
answer.
made.
That's a great answer. I was curious. I'm just like, because it is a thing that everywhere you hear the word, you hear the initials, everybody starts talking
Yeah,
and thinking stuff. And I like your
yeah.
explanation. Thank you about that.
Great question.
Thank you. So that's a question for you, sir. I like to ask also plastic surgeons. Um, because you are also kind of the face of one of the faces of this, and you are here promoting your business. It's the business, right? It's the business also. How much, because you're a good looking guy, so how much is your own looks part of all of this too? Because you are, you're part of this plastic. You're trying to make people look the way they want to look, and sometimes they want to look younger or smoother or whatever. Like I said, I think you're good looking, so you're fine. But just how does that play into your own stuff at work?
If you're right, I guess I should have used it more because you won't see me much on there. I'm behind the scenes. I
Yes.
I just work to try and make everything go smoothly, the stuff that nobody sees, and it's hard. You want to how do you please everybody? How do you make sure everybody has everything they need all the time? And there's so much that goes on behind it, and it's a thankless, selfless job.
Yes.
And it would probably be more fun to just be on there and be the star, but instead I'm
You're running
doing
a
the scut
business.
work
You're running a
behind the
business.
yeah,
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 you're running a business.
yeah. And I don't know. I don't think that this thing wasn't built from, over promising. It wasn't built from, overselling. I think we're very conservative. People come to us. We turn people away, often if we don't think they're good candidates. And some people, they probably go and find somebody who is willing to do it, and that I can't control that. But I don't believe everybody is a candidate. And I think it's important to pick a doctor who's going to be honest with you and tell you, like, I'm not taking your money, you know?
Wow.
And if a doctor tells you they're not going to take you your money, there's two possibilities. One, and they'll usually tell you, right? They're not comfortable doing that procedure because they're not an expert at it. For example, uh, you know, eh, I don't know, some doctors might be really, really good at body and not at face.
Okay.
And if you come and say, but can you do my face? And they'll say, like, look, that's not what I do, right? You find somebody who specializes in that.
Right.
The other reason is they just don't think it's safe for you, or they don't think you're a candidate, or they don't think, it's gonna give you the results you want. Whatever reason it is,
Okay.
listen carefully instead of running and trying to find, going to 8 other consults until you find the guy who is willing to do it, because there's always somebody who's
Yes.
willing to do it and desperately needs to pay their bills. And
Yep.
you have to be careful. We see women come back to us sometimes and say, oh, can you fix it now?
Do that.
Because
Yep. Oh yeah.
it happens all the time. And we try, we always try, but it's important to listen when a doctor says no. Ask why, and if the reason makes sense, wonder why they wouldn't just take the money, right? If you're paying me to do something, if I think it's safe and it makes sense and you're going to be happy, of course we'll do it. So if we say no, which we often do, you know, I think it's important to listen.
That's good. That's really good to know. And I think that because when I looked online and I saw so many positive comments about you and your practice over the years. People were just like, oh, he's so nice, he's so this, oh, he's so knowledgeable. And that's good. That's good to know. I mean, reputation is all we have sometimes. I mean, that's
True.
we have. Reputation and perception are two things that sometimes can do us in. But I would
That's true.
tell people at home, yes, you look at me as a good reputation. So far, I'm just let you know you have a good reputation out there. So I mean, people, if you think about getting some stuff done and you're in the LA area or in Miami area, you should go to Squlpt. Thank you for your time. I can talk to you forever. You're so cool and
So
uh,
fun. Great
yes,
talking to you. Hey, we can do it again anytime.
yeah, I
So
actually
much
love
more to
that.
talk about.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
all kinds of things we can talk about. Seriously, so he's gonna come
Oh,
back.
yeah.
He's gonna come back. So tell people where they can find. I'm gonna put it in the description, but I want you to tell people where they can find your businesses and all that stuff.
Yeah, so our website is sculptbody.com. I mean, websites feel like people don't use them anymore. It's all social media. And our Instagram, which is where you'll see the vast majority of what we do, is sculpt with a Q. So SQULPT. That's it. And that's where we are. And they won't see that much of me.
We won't see you. That
Should I
happens.
show this more often? Is that what
You
you're saying? I
should.
should I should
You're
put
very
this
good
on
looking.
there?
You should.
Maybe maybe I'll take
Great
your
personality.
advice.
Yes, you have a great smile and everything. You should. But no, folks, they have 1 million followers on there, so you can see all kinds of stuff on that page. And they do show procedures. They do show before and afters, because I know that's very important. People want to see
Yep.
examples. They do show
Yep.
examples on that page. So if you don't go to the web, they do on the website too. If you don't go to the website, then go to Instagram. You can see all the stuff they're talking about, and they do some great work. I mean, it's and sometimes, as I try to people who are not into this, sometimes it's not just cosmetic. Sometimes it's needed. Sometimes
Yep.
people there's situations like you say with other situations other than cancer that happen. They need a little reconstruction, or they need something added or taken out. There's all kinds of situations. So why I do this show is also to show people that it's not just these elective things we do, and oh my God, this will look better. It's more than that. It's
Yep.
across the board. There's some things that are life saving. There's some things that are just needed, all
Yep.
to the extra BBLs. So it goes to the whole thing. We throughout the whole thing. Thank you, Dr. Suissa. You're the best. He'll be back on again sometime. Tighten Up is on Facebook. We are also part of JLJ Media, which is my company. We're everywhere you want to be, from TikTok to Instagram. The show is on YouTube, JLJ Media. I call it the granddaddy of them all. But we're also audio, so you can also listen to us on all of the platforms, from iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Audible. I'll just follow us at Tighten Up. You'll see it. You can hear our conversation. And everyone, please, again, do your research. Research the people, vet the plastic surgeons, vet the companies, vet the procedures. Get second opinions. You have to ask around before you do anything that's to do with your body. So that's conversation. Like, please be careful out there. Like you said, there's some folks out there who aren't as careful as he is, as they are. Folks, we'll see you next time.